Become the most feared netrunner in Night City with this insane build. Let's get into the attributes and perks first. This is the setup needed for the build. 16 in intelligence, so we get 4 extra RAM from the attribute points. 15 in core, body and reflexes. Only 9 is needed in technical ability for this build. In the intelligence tree, we want to get to Q acceleration as soon as possible, so we pick Eye in the Sky, Hack Q and Q acceleration, along with optimization, proximate propagation and encryption. We also want embedded exploit and overclock, which allows you to use Quickhacks even with insufficient RAM, but uses your health instead. Overclock isn't strictly needed for the build, but it is very powerful and will always come in handy at some point, which will be explained later on in the video. Now if we're ever targeted by an enemy netrunner, we can pick up counter hack and copy paste to wipe out a bunch of enemies at the same time. Car Hacker is a super fun perk which unlocks the ability to use vehicle Quickhacks. You can use the take control Quickhack and remain in stealth and take out a group of enemies without being near them, similar to cameras. In the body tree we just get all of the middle perks. This improves our survivability and has good synergy with overclock. In the reflexes tree, you want to make sure you pick up dash and air dash just for a huge boost in mobility. You can also pick up the other perks that increase your mobility further and just make combat faster and more fluid. Now for the cool tree, we want to unlock crouch sprinting and vanishing act to be able to use our optical camo whilst we're crouch sprinting. Now the other cool perks are just for backup, as this is primarily a net running build, but we want killer instinct, quick getaway and gag order for the stealth benefits, and we want at least juggler for the throwing weapons, which will return a weapon to us once we neutralize an enemy. If you decide to use the silence pistols instead, pick the pistol perks on the left hand side instead of the throwing weapon perks. For the technical ability tree, we want to get the perks here that improve the effectiveness of our health items, which has great synergy with overclock. We also want to get all things cyber and renaissance punk just for the cyberware capacity benefits. And finally we have the relic tree. The only thing we need here is emergency cloaking, so we can use optical camo to drop combat at any time. You can also get sensory protocol for another failsafe. Also, don't forget about the skill progression rewards where we can get improvements to overclock, optical camo and more RAM. Now let's talk about cyberware. In the frontal cortex we have quantum tuner to reset the cooldown on overclock and optical camo. We have X disk for plus 6 RAM and plus 35% upload speed for Quickhacks. And we have RAM upgrade for plus 2 RAM and an increased RAM recovery rate. RAM reallocator and cameo RAM manager are good alternatives to quantum tuner, especially if you spend the extra attribute points to get 20 intelligence for the attuned cooldown reduction. Armed cyberware doesn't really matter for this build, but you can pick whatever you want if you have the spare cyberware capacity. For the skeleton cyberware we have epimorphic skeleton for a bigger health pool during overclock, and we have phoenix for a big boost in RAM regen when your RAM is below 7. For nervous system we have stabber, which increases crit chance with our throwable weapons. For the integumentary system we have optical camo to use with emergency cloaking and get us out of combat in sticky situations. And we have chitin for a huge boost in health regen. This has great synergy with overclock whilst remaining out of combat. Chitin is usually not very good since health regen is heavily nerfed when entering combat, but since our goal is to stay out of combat, it's very good. For the leg cyberware, I pick reinforced tendons with every build to get a huge boost in mobility and has great synergy with dash and air dash. In the circulatory system, we have biomonitor to automatically heal you when your health drops below half. This works great with overclock, you don't have to use your health item by yourself. We have blood pump to improve the health item effectiveness, and we have heal on kill. One thing to note, heal on kill will be most effective when using combat Quickhacks during overclock. For the hand cyberware, I'm just using handle wrap, which increases crit chance with throwable weapons. You could also use smart link for the plus 2 RAM. For face, I'm using the Kuroshi the Oracle optics to highlight enemies around you and all hackable targets. And for the operating system, the Arasaka Shadow is the cyber deck of choice for this build. The key parts being, enemies take 100% longer to trace your location, minus 2% RAM cost for covert Quickhacks, and whilst overclock is active, Quickhacks will not increase trace progress, which means you can use any Quickhack whilst remaining in stealth. Another thing to note is that you can get additional reduced upload time reduction in the face slot from your clothes. You should be able to get similar face clothing in any of the netrunner vendors across Night City. You might be wondering at this point, there's no cyberware to boost the Quickhack damage. This is because of the Quickhacks we're using for the build. The bread and butter of the build is Tier 2 reboot optics, Tier 3 memory wipe, iconic sonic shock, and at least Tier 5 system collapse. In any regular encounter, we actually want to get traced by the enemy, so we start with reboot optics to initiate a trace, memory wipe to reduce the trace, and then sonic shock to knock the enemy out. And because memory wipe has reduced the trace, we activate one of the system collapse effects and reduces RAM cost. For whatever reason, reducing trace for the first time gives 2 stacks of the RAM reduction. Rinse and repeat for all enemies in an area, and because we have Phoenix and RAM upgrade, we don't even need to use overclock. The Arasaka Cyberdeck reduces RAM cost by 2 for covert Quickhacks. Combined with proximate propagation, we can further reduce the cost of memory wipe and system collapse, and not be reliant on overclock. It's a shame that it doesn't make Sonic Shock cost 0, but that would be too crazy. However, bosses do not get neutralized by the Quickhack combo, and System Collapse also doesn't neutralize them. This is where you have to switch to Iconic Memory Wipe instead of the tier 3 version, or use Emergency Cloaking from the Relic Tree. Iconic Memory Wipe costs a lot of RAM, and you'll most likely have to use overclock in order to use it, unless you can make use of proximate propagation and get close enough to a boss. But for some bosses that won't be enough and you'll still need overclock. Also, Iconic Memory Wipe applies itself to all nearby enemies, so you can neutralize them by casting Reboot Optics and Sonic Shock. Now to talk about overclock more. Since we are using the Arasaka Cyberdeck, you can use any Quickhack without increasing trace. So as another stealth Netrunner variation, you can use Synapse Burnout to neutralize enemies, and essentially have infinite overclock uptime whilst remaining in stealth, which will also reset with Quantum Tuner should overclock actually run out. Keep in mind you want to upload a control or covert Quickhack before Synapse Burnout to make use of embedded exploit and get increased damage. You can try to fit in Cyberware to boost the damage of Synapse Burnout if you have the Cyberware capacity. Bait and Request Backup are also great to use in combination with the other stealth Quickhacks. You can queue Bait and Request Backup together and get up to 5 enemies to group up with the original target. This can also be done on cameras too, so you can potentially take everyone out without even entering a hostile area, as long as there are enough cameras. A quick tip for the order of the Quickhacks menu. It's actually the reverse of the order you slot them, so if you want the same order shown on the screen, select System Collapse, Sonic Shock, Memory Wipe and then Reboot Optics in that order. For PC players, I heavily recommend the mod Quickhacks Sort by Slot, which allows you to easily change the order of the Quickhacks, making the Netrunner life a lot easier. And you may have noticed the numbers next to the Quickhacks throughout the video. That mod is Quickhack Hotkeys, which assigns number keys to your Quickhacks, and I believe it has controller support as well. Both of these mods make netrunning so much more enjoyable for me, I can't recommend them enough. Another mod you can use is Preem Scanner, which removes the green tint and vignette when you activate the scanner. There are multiple options to choose from. There's also Nova Scanner, which is another similar mod. And finally, let's move on to weapons. We're going to want throw-in weapons and silence weapons. These will mainly be used as backup, and it's not too important which exact weapons you get. You can mix weapons and Quickhacks in your combat however you see fit. Here is a list of good stealth weapons. Pick your favourites. My favourite is the Byakko Katana. Click this video to see the ultimate katana build, or click the other video for something else.